Hi there. I'm reading the next part of your bedtime story, Palace Wagon Family. They are really struggling to find food. We also had a group of young people left on snowshoes, and things are not going to go well with them. Virginia wanted to go with them. Virginia Reed wanted to go with them, and they didn't invite her, and she got hurt feelings, but it turns out that it probably saved her life. All right, here we go. Milt was not lost, as people were beginning to fear. He was just having a hard time wading back through the snow alone. Noah James had stayed at the Donner camp, believing he could help. Milt doubted it. The news he brought back was kept from the younger children, but Virginia saw where it was recorded in Patrick Breen's diary that Jacob Donner and 3 of his teamsters were dead. The rest of them are in a low situation, he added. Snowed all night with strong southwest wind. So what he means by low situation is that 3 people have died and the rest of the people that are alive are eating their bodies, the bodies of the dead people. The news is not all bad, though. On December 23rd, he wrote, "Clear day. Milton took some of his meat away, all well at their camp. Began this day to read the 30 days' prayers. Almighty God grant the requests of unworthy sinners." Virginia liked this prayer. She felt herself very unworthy. Sometimes she wondered if God wasn't punishing her for her pride. Now she was humble enough, kneeling beside Uncle Patrick as he prayed. As Christmas approached, it was hard not to think of other, happier Christmases. Virginia spent the morning in the Breen cabin, praying for a miracle and afterwards holding a flaming pine torch for Mr. Breen as he wrote, "December 25th, began to snow yesterday, snowed all night and snows yet rapidly, extremely difficult to find wood, uttered our prayers to God this Christmas morning. The prospect is appalling, but we trust in him." Comforted a little, but with the pangs of hunger still unrelieved, Virginia climbed up to the surface of the snow and started back without the small piece of meat Mrs. Breen sometimes gave her. The cabin shared by the Reed and Graves family was almost buried, but Jimmy was industriously shoveling snow to keep the entrance clear. Steps were cut out of the hard packed snow. So the entrance to all the cabins was through the roof, right? They had put cowhides on the roof and then they left like an opening. So the snow is completely covering, it's completely gone up the sides of the cabin and it's starting to bury the cabin. And so he's shoveling the top off so that they won't be completely covered in snow. Steps were cut out of the hard packed snow. Tommy appeared at the top of them like a rabbit coming out of its hole, and he said hopefully, "Is Santa Claus coming?" Patty answered from just behind him, "No, Tommy, it's only Virginia coming back from the Breen shanty. You know Santa Claus can't get through the snow if Pa can't." Mr. Reed had always made Christmas a happy time for the children, but this year Christmas toys were forgotten. "I would like some candy, though," Tommy said wistfully. "I'd rather have an apple," Patty put in. "Wouldn't a piece of apple taste good?" "I like beans." "Couldn't you write us a letter, Virginia?" Jimmy asked. "Maybe we could send it to Santa Claus in the smoke the way we did last year, remember?" "What's the use?" cried Virginia. "You know that our beans are all used up. Asking Santa Claus won't help." "Maybe it will." Mrs. Reed spoke softly from the door of the cabin. "Mama," Tommy asked, running to her, "why are you crying?" Virginia thought she knew, and then in the light from the fireplace she saw what was on the table. It was almost like the miracle she had been praying for. Only this, she knew, was a miracle of love and sacrifice. A whole cup full of beans. Another cup half filled with rice, and a few pieces of dried apple were there before her eyes. "Ma, you hid them for us," Patty exclaimed. "No, Santa Claus did," Tommy objected. "Beans!" Jimmy exclaimed rapturously. "Real beans!" So here they are. They just have like a cup full of beans and they're super excited because beans are real food. They're not melted cowhides, right? So they're dropping the beans into the pot. You may drop them into the pot yourselves and watch them boil, the children were told. Me first, cried Tommy, carefully dropping in a single bean. A little later, when the pot was boiling, the bean came to the surface, and he shouted, "There's my bean!" "There's mine!" cried Jimmy. "Look at the dried apple puff up. Look, Dolly." Patty had nearly forgotten her doll in the excitement, but now she had to look at the wonderful Christmas dinner cooking over the fire. Later, when they gathered around the rough board table, now covered with a fine tablecloth, and set with the same dishes they had used back in Illinois, there was a place for Milt Elliott and John Denton, too. It was almost too much for Virginia. One of those places she knew had been set in the hope that her father would soon come. Where was he, she wondered. He might have tried to be with them and perished in the snow. Yes, Virginia thought she knew why her mother had planned this feast and why she was saying, "Eat slowly, children. This one day you may have all you wish." "I have never since sat down to Christmas dinner," she confessed years later, "without my thoughts going back to Donner Lake." So that's kind of an interesting thing, that no matter what happened in the rest of Virginia's life, I mean, she ended up surviving and she got married and she had children of her own. She lived in San Jose. She kind of lived in a couple of different locations in California, that every Christmas, this was the Christmas that she remembered, right? In her life, it was the most important Christmas. And probably made her feel good reflecting back on it and knowing that she and her family were able to survive, right? And that they were able to survive without eating dead bodies or, resorting to cannibalism. So I guess when you're at your lowest point and it happens to be on Christmas, you kind of remember back to that and remember how far you've come. So, all right, the next chapter is called "The Hardest Thing Yet." So it's going to get worse. So see you tomorrow night for your bedtime story for "The Hardest Thing Yet." Thanks for joining me.